Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of the Drive Home Podcast. The podcast where I'm the only one who needs to buckle up. This is going to be the start of the very, 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 very... I wish I had more episodes for you. Saga. Because, long story short, I work 3 days this week. This is the first, and there are 2 more. So this week, you'll get 3 episodes. If there's 3, I'll probably space them out differently. There'll be one on the Monday, one on Wednesday, and then another on Friday. Just to keep things even. But, hope you don't mind that. I can't really do too much about it yet. Anyway, tonight I got out at 8 o'clock, as I normally do. So something interesting there's a couple interesting things I want to go over. The first thing, my car still probably needs to get checked out. My grandfather, he's going to take a look at it on Friday this week. So pretty much every day this week I'm doing something, even if it's not work, or even like including work. I have something to do every single day this week. Now, I mean, pretty much, except for yesterday. Well, no, I had to go buy a new Xbox controller yesterday because I think I spilled water near it and it just crapped out. It got drift. It got drift on one of the joysticks. It got drift on the right joystick to go up, like straight up, like very slowly, but it was still annoying enough to where like you need that in like FPS games and games where you have guns and stuff or need to aim. So that includes Warframe and Fortnite. And last weekend was the Fortnite concert with Metallica. Very short event, honestly. But it wasn't bad. I liked it. It was mostly just climb the tower, do some parkour kind of stuff, which was interesting. I liked it. The music was really good. Which, to be fair, it's Metallica. Of course it's good. So I haven't really listened to too many Metallica songs because I knew they existed. It's just one of those things where it's like I know they exist, but I never actively sought them out or did any research on it. It's like older video games. Like, at least for me, I like video games, and it will take a very specific game for me to do any amount of research on previous games. Thus, so far, I think the only game I've really done any amount of research on previous games for was the Xenoblade Chronicles series. Because Xenoblade Chronicles X is my favorite game of all time. So that was, I guess, one of the more interesting things. And I thought of this today, and I don't know why, but I was just going through random scenarios of random BS in my head today. And one of the things that came into it was, without really a lot of explanation, just like, so you go back in time or something. Long story short, you end up with a baby version. So just to keep this easy, in my example that happened in my head, I ended up with the baby version of my father. But I was in my time. And the question is nothing to do with actual time travel it's more to do with like how it's perceived. So no one knows I time travel except for me. Baby's too young to remember. The time continuum is weird. Yada yada yada. No one really knows how time travel works. Long story short, the universe is fine for one reason or another. Everything is fine and as the way it was. Except, now I have my dad as a baby. Now, people will ask where I got the baby from. And let's say a scientist or a doctor or whatever does a DNA test. Would my father as a baby seem like my father was my son? But also as a baby? Because I have half of his DNA, but in a sense that would also work vice versa. So since I have half of my father's DNA, his DNA would technically contain half of my DNA, if you think about it. So in theory, through a DNA test, people would think that my dad as a baby would be my son or something, which is strange. I don't know why I thought about it. It's just something that popped into my head, and I talked to a friend about it, and they agreed with me. I don't know. It's something interesting to think about, though, I guess, because people often talk about the ramifications of time traveling and less about the logistics of time traveling, if that makes any sense. Because people talk about how time travel would work rather than what time traveling thing, how that would affect the real world if you brought something with you from the past or future. So for me, the way I like to think about time travel is sort of similar to Dragon Ball in a weird way. So the way I like to think about it is when you time travel, your future, your time, let's say, I'm going to explain it using science that doesn't exist in Dragon Ball, but we're just going to see how that turns out. So, so the way it works in Dragon Ball is when you time travel, if you time travel into the past or into the future, for whatever reason, you end up in that same future that you came from. If you time travel from the past and time travel back to the future, that's how that works. I have no idea, I guess. Well, because present day is always present day, so that's... Because it depends on what you deem as present day, I guess. But the way I see it, let's say that the way time travel works is... I don't know if there's an actual name or a method for it, so I'm just going to call it... I'm just going to call it time travel but lame, basically. So long story short, let's use scientific terms. If you were to go back in time and change the past, it wouldn't change your present because that would cause an anomaly. Instead, it branches your timeline off into a separate timeline, and only if you have someone from that timeline are you able to access that timeline. Because they can't go into the new future because that would it wouldn't cause a paradox per se, but it would cause an anomaly of there being more than one person of the same person, so to speak. So the time machine that you invent can only go back and forth in time to, it can't change the course of events to your perception. The only way for it to change the course of events is if you were to stay in the past and watch it play out, I guess. I always thought that was probably the best outcome for time travel, is that we don't get to experience it, but we get the knowledge of knowing that something will have gone different. And then it kind of solves a lot of the problems too. Because, like, you know, if you go to a different future and there's a second version of you, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it does, but it doesn't. It does because you're not the same person as that person. That person that is you and shares your DNA is a completely separate entity who has gone through different experiences because of what you changed, because of the butterfly effect. I don't know. I've always been really interested with like the ramifications and of time travel and how, because nobody really knows how time travel works. But it's always interesting to like see time play out the way it does. In TV and stuff. It's always really interesting for that. So yeah, I don't know, like, so what are the other, I guess, let's go over the other time travels. So I guess I called it lame time travel. I only call it that because it's not like you can, so like, the thing is, it's sort of like paradoxical, because it's paradoxically anti-paradoxical, because no matter what you do, your present, your future, more or less, will stay the same. But in the past, the time has changed. So in a sense, if you go back in, like, it's hard to say, but I guess, like, the only way to, like, meet yourself through time travel with that one, besides if you go back, like, 5 minutes and be like, hey, is, I would say would be to go back, like, 5 minutes before you arrive at your destination, and, you know, park next to where you would park yourself, and just be like, hey, I'm you, but from the slightly further future. That's a joke, I think. It sounds vaguely joke-like. I feel like I've heard that before, but I can't remember where. I don't know. Because it requires a very different kind of thinking to think about time travel. Because we don't know how time travel can work. We have to guess. Because the end, like, so here's the thing. I think that one is probably the best, or is probably one of the only answers for time travel, because our past or our timeline stays the same no matter what. Like, we don't think there are time travelers. I think that's because this is the first run, so to speak. This is before we invent time travel, which, like, of course, yeah, like, you can time travel backwards, probably. That's how time travel would work if we had it. But what I'm saying is that time travel doesn't affect time the way we think it does. We can't experience time travel because we're on the first timeline. We're in the original timeline before we invent time travel. But once we invent time travel, so to speak, which we already will have done in the future, people will travel back in time at some point, even though it'll be probably illegal or something. We have to follow very specific instructions. You know, the long story short is, no matter what somebody does in that time travel, that will create a spin-off timeline. And even though whenever you time travel back, it will always take you back to the same timeline, or to the original timeline that you are from, that timeline has sparked off on its own and created its own timeline. So there's a timeline where Hitler died already because he got murdered by a future traveler. You know? And there's a timeline where I never made this podcast because I was good at socializing and stuff, and popular, and good at sports, and awesome. I don't know. But but those timelines aren't here yet, so to speak. Or, well, they already are here, as they will always have been. This just makes me think of the Big Bang Theory and how they tried to explain the time travel in Back to the Future 2 or 3 or whatever. No, 2, because 2 was the one where they went to the future. I don't know. I didn't talk about this too much, but I've been watching through the Big Bang Theory because it's like Sheldon's always kind of funny because he's an adult, but he has the mentality of like a 5-year-old. Like, he is in every way except for physicality and with how much knowledge he has, a 5-year-old. Like, his enjoyed pastimes are like 5-year-old. Like, he likes trains and trains and comics and stuff. I don't know. It's just and like the way he acts. It's just really funny. I've gotten on to like season 8, season 9. I want to say season 8, but I think I got to season 9. If there is a season 9, I can't remember. I don't know how many seasons there are. All I know is that I must be getting close to the end. But I just remember the really funny conversation. It was like a beginning bit, so it wasn't like super important to the episode. But they were trying to like solve how Back to the Future 2 made sense or something. So because because Future Biff gave young Biff the magazine with the future bet records or whatever, or betting records or whatever you want to call them. It's something about have, will have, or something. Because of the way time works, it doesn't make any sense. So because Future Biff is able to go back to his current future where he's lame, I think that like it doesn't make a lot of sense because we haven't invented time travel yet, so it's hard to explain it. But you can't change the past. You can only create new timelines. Think about it like that, I guess. And the butterfly effect exists to differentiate those timelines beyond just the one thing. Right? Because, like, let's say you go back in time and you kill Hitler as a baby. That's one timeline. But once you leave that timeline, you're enabled to access that timeline again, so to speak. Like, it's like a video game level. Like, whenever you go into it, all the same enemies are there all the time, and you can kill them all or whatever you do in that game, or whatever game that is. But if you try and do that level again in free play or just again in the story mode or whatever, all the enemies are back, and they have no knowledge of what you did, because time travel is weird. It's sort of like that. Each separate instance of time travel is weird. And I haven't really talked about how time travel to the future would go, because I'm not sure. I guess you could change your initial timeline that way. And then that would, in theory, that would lock you out of your future. So, if you time traveled to the future and took something back from the future, you would change the course of events that led to that future, which wouldn't get rid of that item because that future still exists. It's the original future. But you've created a new timeline just then and there. So from that point on in time, anything you do can change the course of events through butterfly effect and whatever it is you took from the future. I think. So I think that's the best bet for that stuff. I think that's the most interesting way to do about it. I think, like, if that is how time travel works, that we don't actually get to see the new timeline, unless if we're the ones creating it, I think that is probably the best bet for time travel and how it works. Just because. Either way, I've gotten home, and time travel is weird, and I want to go inside. So thank you all for listening to this episode of the Drive Home Podcast. I hope you enjoyed, and check out my sponsor, Absolutely Nothing. I don't have a sponsor. I would like to, but there's no way. It is too small. I'm too small. I need to get bigger. I need to grow up big and tall. No, but it'd be nice. Because, working a 3-day week is not good for money. But, I like these. They're interesting. And thank you all for listening to this episode, and I hope I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!